Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I'm going to provide a quick review of the technology. Today's webinar is being recorded. The link will be available after today's session. We welcome you to revisit the content and share it with your networks. Tonight's session will include time for a Q&A from you to the panelists who will be introduced shortly. To submit a question, please look at the Q&A box on your screen. If you think of a question, you can type it in there. If you're having any issues with the Zoom technology, please feel free to either chat with me in Zoom or email me.
On behalf of the Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation's Board of Directors, welcome to the 8th and final workshop of the Africatown and the Future of Mobile, Alabama. My name is Levy King, and I humbly serve as the chairman of the board for the Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation. Tonight's presentation is distinctly different in its format than our previous workshop sessions, as we have invited several panelists to join us to share their insights, experience, and ideas. The Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation, or as we like to call it, the AHPF, has commissioned Justice and Sustainability Associates to support the development of this powerful series of educational presentations. Welcome again.
Thank you very much, Levy. And I want to welcome all of you tonight in the audience. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to say that we're going to ask you to share any questions or comments you may want to share with the panel using, as Melina said, the question and answer function. You will be able to make that part of the record, and these recordings are going to be made available using the foundation's website after tonight. And we'd like to make sure that we raise some of the questions or comments that you in the audience with us tonight are sharing. I'm Don Edwards, and I'm going to introduce very, very briefly our panelists so that we can get right to the interview. If I were to spend more time talking about their biographies, we would do that for the entire hour that we have tonight. I want to welcome Anderson Flynn. He's one of the co-founders of the Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation. I want to welcome Liz Smith-Inser, project specialist with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. Jocelyn Davis, who is a lifelong resident of Africatown, sixth-generation descendant of Mr. Charlie Lewis, and a member of the Heritage Foundation Board, and not least, Commissioner Merceria Ludgood of Mobile County District 1. So please welcome all of them tonight. I'm going to jump right in with a question that we have been dealing with ever since we started this course. And the idea behind the workshops were to realize or increase the ability for the residents and stakeholders in the future of Africatown and Mobile to begin to appreciate the complexity of the opportunity that's in front of them. And so my first question is a pretty simple one, but we hope you each speak to it in whatever way you'd like. And that is, what is your vision of the communities that collectively we call Africatown? It could be 5 years out, it could be 15 or 20 years out, but we'd like you to use that third eye to talk about the vision that you hope to see emerge given the assets and the opportunities facing Mobile and the neighborhood that we call Africatown. Anderson, let's start with you.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate the question. I appreciate being here this evening. My vision for Africatown, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be community university. And what I mean by that is that Africatown and the community itself held all of those properties that made a university campus, in the sense that the environment was very special, the physical environment, also the educational aspect of the community regarding the school and the people in the community, the teachers, the churches. There was a synergy in Africatown that I believe, if was given the opportunity, could have been the oasis and mecca of Black opportunities and resources for all of Mobile, and especially Black Mobile, because of just the dynamic individuals who came from there and the framing of how that particular community was established and really worked in things. So the community university concept is what I envision Africatown becoming in terms of the economic, educational, and environmental piece, to store the history there, to teach people about all of those particular things that took place, from Booker T. Washington coming there to the Rosenwald campus, to all of those things happening from a local standpoint that really has national and international perspective now. And I look for that to be in the future.
Liz.
I want to think of Africatown as a place of pilgrimage, a place that people might want to seek, have a pilgrimage to Africatown to learn how to have the hard conversations. And when they arrive, they perhaps participate in classes at a community university that Anderson spoke of. Classes about collaboration, about ecological services, all sorts of different things. But I would hope that Africatown is recognized on a global scale as a place of healing, emotional healing, physical healing. When people arrive, they walk through lush gardens and healthy ecosystems. They walk along trails of edible trees, fruit trees, and nut trees. There are places for them to sit and contemplate next to the clean waters of Mobile River and Chickasaw Creek. So people arriving to heal themselves, heal one another, have some hard conversations, and still be reassured that they can move on.
Jocelyn has lost her connectivity, and hopefully she'll come back on. But Commissioner Ludgood, what about you? You're muted.
So when I think about Africatown's future, I'm looking forward to new housing starts and people moving back into the community, and all of the tourism assets that are coming online. I'm looking forward to community-based ownership of amenities to support those assets. And so I'm imagining this little community that could, where we no longer have to worry about whether or not the school is going to survive, because we have new young families with children moving back in and investing in that community to change the narrative from decline to vibrancy. And when I think about those assets like the cemetery and the Welcome Center, I see those being adequately funded for maintenance into perpetuity, that we've been able to find a way to make sure that we no longer have to worry about how we're going to get the grass cut or gravestones restored and all of that, because when that happens and when we need to do that, that we will have a resource there that's adequately funded for us to be able to do whatever we need to do. And that's how I see it. So it's and I like what Anderson said and what Liz said as well. And I guess in addition to the people who are coming in, my vision is for the people who stayed there and endured throughout all of this. That they were the ones who kept the anchor right there and didn't let. We have a good place to start. We have a good starting place from which to to begin to regrow the community.
I want to thank all three of you, but now I'm going to ask a tougher question. I think it would be fair to say that in the conversations I participated in with you, you have all in various ways and at various times spoken of the challenges. This is a question that has to do with the community development. It's not a question about the Clotilda or the future of where the Clotilda is, but it's really the people and the place called Africatown. My question is this: what are the challenges and the barriers that you each think will have to be overcome for your vision, the vision you just articulated, to be achieved? And Liz, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, so what comes to mind right away are like all the infrastructure barriers, and sometimes people say right away, oh, well, the barriers of funding. But I right away go to something a little deeper. And what comes to mind is we will need to get over the barrier to this lack of trust and a lack of respect for our fellow human being. And I feel like that happens at many different levels. So if we could foster a greater sense of trust so that we could move forward as a united front, that would really be helpful. And in order to do that, we need to fall back on respecting one another's different, very diverse opinions and needs and wants and things like that. I really feel like those are barriers that somehow as a community we will need to talk more about.
Anderson?
I think what Liz said is absolutely true. I think the other thing is we have to, all of us who are connected to Africatown and Mobile, have to stand for truth. And that truth has to be united against friends and foes that sometimes want to do things that are not in the best interests of all of us, whether that's from an educational standpoint, whether that's from a policy standpoint, whether that's from a relationship standpoint. We all have to sacrifice. And we all have to be open and committed and put things on the table and be willing to walk away with a consensus that we are all going to do well, that we're all going to do well. Each one of us require different aspects of things. You know, no one is deserving of more or less than anyone else, but we have to be very frank and honest and truthful about those things. And we have to recognize that each one of us bring something to the table to serve and make a difference in one another's lives. And once we understand that, we cannot let anything or anybody outside or inside tear us apart in that direction. And we have to be truthful with each other all the time.
Jocelyn, glad that you were able to get back in the room. I'm asking folks, and I'm going to ask you just to go back to share your vision of Africatown, as well as articulate some of the challenges and barriers that you believe have to be overcome for your vision to be achieved.
Yeah, I think that we all share the same vision. I think about today after the swim class when it was over, because it's extremely hot here in Mobile. I wanted to take my niece out for ice cream. So I had to travel across town to take her to get ice cream. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if there was a snow cone shop or ice cream place for when the kids finish with the swim program that they can go and get ice cream? You know, I have a vision of small cafes, an amphitheater, a performing arts studio. And I know Commissioner Lovegood talked about the renovation of the homes. Newly built affordable homes, those shotgun houses. I know in Mobile, they have this thing on social media that's called Shotgun Saturday, where they show how they have restored the shotgun houses downtown. I would love to see all the shotgun houses in Africatown restored. And I would like to see this done within the 5 years, because I think about our ancestors when they arrived to the United States. It took them they had a 5-year plan, and they stuck to that 5-year plan. And they were able to, and you know, we've said this several times, build a school, form a community, build a church, do all of those things. So that's one of my visions. I would just love to see Africatown get its just due. And then when people think about Africatown, they'll think about Savannah, or they'll think about New Orleans. You know, when they come to Africatown, it's like, oh, wow, this is Africatown. Now, the obstacles, it's the fear of the unknown. I attend several meetings in Africatown, and some of the community members are they have fear of gentrification. They have fear of losing their homes, and they have a fear of their taxes being raised. So how do we educate our young people who may not know what gentrification is? How do we educate our elderly to let them know that at a certain age, your taxes won't be raised? And we can talk about the pros and cons of your taxes being raised. You know, it brings value to your home. So it's the obstacle right now, I feel like it's the fear of the unknown.
All right, Commissioner Lovegood, what about you? Obstacles and challenges.
So I need to say this before I think I address that specifically. I think that whenever we are making evaluations like this, we have to position ourselves at this place in time. And while there are a lot of things on the on the horizon, the impact, the trauma of all that has transpired is very real. And I think as we talk about what people bring to these conversations and the way they react or to certain things, it comes from somewhere. It originated somewhere. And sometimes I don't know that we make room to understand that level of dysfunction that has shaped kind of where we are. And this is right now we're talking about Africatown, but that is not unique to Africatown. That is what most African American communities have to contend with, and it gets in the way. It finds its way. It gets in the way because we bring our individual experience to these situations, and we react out of that experience sometimes in unhealthy ways, but we also bring a collective experience as a people to that. Now, having said that, one of the things I've noticed what I call two strands. There is the strand that is just absolutely rooted to the present. What do we need to be doing for people today? What do we need to be doing in this community today for the people today? Then there's another strand that projects out into the future. And those things can mutually coexist. But sometimes we fall out because we act as if they're either or. And we got to do both things. We got to do what people need today to the extent that we can, but we also have got to project a vision for the future. And so finding a way for us to make peace with both those things, and to know that we got to find resources for both those things, understanding that it comes out of a trauma that we didn't create, that we inherited, and we've got to live through and work through.
Well, I have to say that this is exactly the conversation that I think you are benefiting and helping your Africatown residents, people of Mobile, people across the country and the world that are listening and will be listening to this recording. And it's because this issue of trauma, you talked about dysfunction, Commissioner Ludgood, the trauma is exacerbated by the conditions we read about in the headlines every day, because it seems like we can't see a way forwards. It's almost as like one step forwards, two steps backwards. It's like we're talking about things that our parents and our grandparents talked about, sometimes even going further back in our family history. And so I want to just dig a little bit deeper into this, because I think here's what I have experienced from talking with you and from being in Africatown. The biggest resource is going to be the one I think, Anderson, you referred to, and that's the ability to sacrifice, believe, and shoulder. Well, back in the day, they used to say shoulder the cross, but you're going to have to shoulder the work of creating that Africatown that you want. And I'm very interested in hearing more about what you think is the path, or is there one thing that you would suggest or point to that is going to have to be done for your community and your residents, and to attract new residents who want to make a place that Liz described? I mean, Liz, your description was idyllic, and it can be created, but it's going to require people to work together, and I would imagine a lot of different kind of people to work together. I'm very interested. Who would like to speak to that?
Let me just start it out, because I think my thought process is somewhat simple for me, basically. But the two things that I set out to do this year was to work with the cemetery, because I remember so many of those people and heard of so many others. The other piece was the swim program and the young kids. And so I look at that to me is where I see us appreciating and recognizing what we need to do. Is so many people made so many sacrifices who are in that cemetery out there. Many of them I remember. I did not realize that many of them were born in the 1800s, lived to be 90, 70, 80, 90 years old. And then I look at the young kids who are such virgin minds and spirits. And Jocelyn sent me some pictures yesterday of the swim thing, and I shared it with people, and it was just a joy. And so I look at respecting, and I think all of us can come together around death and those who have gone on. And I think all of us can come around children who are innocent and who are needing to be helped to be shaped and taught to be collaborative and honest and truthful. And so I look at those are my anchors that sort of keeps me focused on, I have to remember those who are no longer here, who tried to teach me the best that they could. And I have a responsibility to teach those little children, many of them who I have not met, but I can see them and feel them and I feel a kinship to them, the best that they can be, to be able to go anywhere, be with anybody, and hold their own in a respectful, truthful manner. And so that's what drives me from the standpoint of saying there's hope, in the sense of with the young and with those no longer here, there's that hope that keeps me balanced and keep me thinking forward to make a difference.
Someone else.
I see Mobile County Training School, the Alumni Association, the different nonprofits, community groups that are related to Africatown as sort of, and the school really is the center point piece of a focus, a powerhouse of learning and healing. That school is our connection because of the young minds. I really believe that starting with these young minds and in fostering the collaborative spirit in humans at a very young age is so important. That just is what comes to mind for me right now.
What comes to mind to me is let's hear from them. We talk about, we're talking about the school and we do have great plans for them. Let's talk to them. Let's ask them, where do they see Africatown in 5 years? What are some of the things that they like? Because, sometimes as adults, we figure, oh, we want this. And sometimes we kind of don't ask the kids what they want. So let's hear from them, not let's just talk to them. Let's hear from the younger generation, those who are in the swim program, those who are at the Hope Center. We need to go into the classroom and just hear from the children.
It's interesting how the story of the Clotilda, especially after the remains at the site were discovered, how that captured so much imagination. Of course, the people who've been living in Africatown, who are descendants of the folks who came off the Clotilda, that's as much a story that deserves, in my opinion, attention and sharing, because that's the story of overcoming all kinds of obstacles, like pre-Civil War living in a community that was isolated and left to its own, growing up under Jim Crow, all the things that people have had to overcome. In my mind, the question arises, Jocelyn, that teaching children about their history, about their ancestors, about their community, about their rituals. I'm aware that you all are very much now investing in re-enlivening rituals like the lantern walk that was done or is going to be done every year. How do you teach those rituals when the context is to not prioritize or even honor those stories, that history, and make it possible for it to be shared in a consistent way? How do you do that? How do you raise up that generation?
Well, you said the key word consistency is the key. We have to be consistent. And, rituals, the lantern walk, right now we're trying to have a calendar where they're filled with things that the children can look forward to, right? So for me, I know that the Spirit of Our Ancestors Festival, we have a play called An Ocean in My Bones, where we bring the Clotilda story to life, right? So the kids can actually see the actual events. So I know that, you know, we have all the books, but to see it come to life is great for our children, because I'm a big advocate of a performing arts studio where our kids can become more involved in the arts. So I think consistency is the key. So how do we stay consistent in these rituals? Right. So I think that we just have to remain consistent.
So I think those I call them traditions, the ones that we've lost that we recapture, and the new ones that are being created. Those are very important. And for me, that's like one strand. The other strand for me is the institutions. I consider the cemetery an institution. It is foundational to the future of Africatown. And so the school is critical to it's foundational for the future of Africatown. The housing stock, attracting retail, all of those are foundational. And so we got to, the way I see it is that we've got to do both things. We've got to use the traditions as a way to bring people back to the community, to educate them, to build that heartfelt connection. But at the same time, we've got to be doing the work on the other side of the ledger of shoring up all of those institutions, because the traditions can't really last unless the institutions are strengthened. That's the way kind of I see it. I see the traditions on one side, and then the strategic engagement around the institutions on the other side, both of them working hand in hand.
Well, Jocelyn, you raised the great work, consistency, and you say I mentioned it, but listen, let's get real here for a second. I don't believe that you all believe that there is as much consistency in the leadership and the approach to working together collaboratively in Africatown that you would like to see. I'd like for you to talk as frankly as you feel is necessary, because this challenge is one that other communities have overcome. I will tell you that it's going to take everything, all the oars pulling together. Anderson, you've talked in the past about whether the strategy is one big boat that everybody has to get on, or many boats, as long as they're all going in the same direction. I think this is a leadership question that is in front of Africatown. It's no secret. I'd appreciate each of you speaking to it.
Let me just say this, Donna. Thank you for that question, because here again, and I just want to make a reference to the Lantern Walk real quickly. That event really focused on the hand, the head, and the heart. And that's what we're trying to do at Africatown. I do an annual kite homemaking thing where I have intergenerational pieces there, where young kids who have never made a homemade kite from just a thing, all of those things. But I think, once again, we have to, as our elders, we have to give honestly and freely of those blessings that have been given to us. I think that when we, as a people, hold back those gifts that have been given to us, hold back those resources that have been shared with us, hold back the knowledge that we have to make a difference, we all hurt everybody, including ourselves. And so I think in terms of leadership, once again, we cannot allow ourselves to be secretive and divisive and whatever. We have to share, because I've learned over time, you can give an individual certain resources, but if they're not for that individual, they will not handle them well and stuff. And so I just believe that each one of us have to make a commitment that whatever we've been blessed with in terms of talents and skills and opportunities and resources, share those willingly. Can't nobody take anything from you that is yours. Can't nobody take that from you. And so my thing is that anything that I have, any person that I know, any gift that I can give, I will share that with people. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to be willing to do that and to make that kind of difference. I love working with the kids with the kites because it's so funny because many of them, you have to use your fingers in a very unique way. And I gather that elementary schools now don't use certain kinds of techniques with kids using their fingers. They use everything with computers and stuff. But all of our body is a tool that we've been blessed with. And if we share the mind, we share the heart, we share the skills we have, and we share those things freely, I've learned that more things come to you than if you don't share them at all.
Someone else. Commissioner
I
Lovegood, I'm sorry, Liz, go ahead.
I was thinking about that reference of boats and the idea that we're sort of all on the creek, Mobile River together, all heading with good intentions, but we're sort of spread out. In my vision of all of our boats, the water is going past us and we're missing all these resources because we're all spread out and things are passing us by. And if somehow we could sort of pull together and understand our connections together, that we would be a more powerful community. And related to that, the community has taught me some powerful rituals to physically and emotionally do that. And I wanted to mention them. I think they are very important. I was introduced to these at something we called the Africatown Connections Blue Way celebrations under the bridge, and we've used them at other meetings. And one was the Circle of the Elders. And it is this idea that the elders have knowledge or information, and this information is to be passed on to either younger generations or just folks that don't know. And we use a pebble or a stone. It's physically passed from the person who has the knowing to the person or organization that is to receive the knowledge, the Circle of the Elders. And I'm sure community members could fill you in on details about that. And then this idea of the other ritual, remember merging of the waters? And in the Africatown Connections Blue Way project, we have 4 jurisdictions. City of Chickasaw, City of Pritchard, City of Mobile, Mobile County, lots of different things going on in those jurisdictions. And so what we would do is to bring them together. We would have them bring water from their jurisdictions and their geography. And we would have them pour that water from separate vessels into one vessel. And then that ritual will end up with a young person walking that vessel to Mobile River and pouring it back into the river so that the acts, the intentions, the emotions, the connection continues. And so I think these examples of rituals reiterate how important they are. And they might seem, well, that's weird, rituals and coming from a bureaucratic federal employee. I work for the National Park Service, but they are so important to connect us as human beings. And so I would encourage us to do more of that in our everyday meetings, these ritual type things to reconnect us because we're feeling a little disconnected.
I wanted to ask Commissioner Ludgood a question because you've been a successful elected official. You're a servant. You have demonstrated your ability to deliver benefits, to care for the people who send you to the county commission. What's your what's your reading as someone who looks over the entire of Mobile County, the entirety of Mobile County? We talked about this as a question of not just Africatown, but the future of Mobile. And I'm very interested in your getting a chance to elaborate on that, because I think at least everyone in this meeting and maybe many of the people in the audience like the fact that you're where you are and want you to be able to continue to be successful where you are. And if you have an opportunity to go even more and get more authority and more opportunity to serve. But what would it matter for you to be able to message around some of these leadership questions as someone who is a recognized leader?
Well, some time ago, I made a conscious decision that I was just not going to, that I was going to reject this narrative that leaders in Africatown can't work together. Because I was in a lot of places that was being used as a reason not to invest.
Hmm.
And so when I heard it, I said, well, I haven't had that experience. That hasn't been my experience. I say my experience is that if you go to the community and you go in the right way, seeking their input before you decide what's best for them, that you will find that every leader in that community wants is what's best for that community, what's going to improve that community. And so sometimes I think what we have to do is just burrow down. We're all people who come out of some tough places, and we're shaped by our experiences. Some we come warts and all, and but we all bring some really extraordinary. And when I'm talking about the leadership in Africatown, they bring some extraordinary perspectives. The level of commitment is just it's just incredible what they're willing to, the sacrifice that Anderson talked about. I've seen it everywhere. I mean, they're in. And so when somebody is working hard like that to make something happen in the community, the things that I wish might be different, I can ignore those. I can pull the good out of that, what's useful and helpful, and just let the other stuff fall by the wayside. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that every single person who acts in leadership in Africatown wants the best for their community. Now, when we see, one of the problems is there is so much to be done. The needs are so great. And I think the differences come when we start trying to prioritize. One person's priority might be this, another person's priority might be that. It's different. It's not necessarily wrong, it's just different. But if we could ever figure out, some magic in what the priorities are, then I think some of what we're seeing may fall away, because at the end of the day, everybody's goal is the best Africatown that we can build. And we just have different ways of approaching that. So, and what happens in Africatown is not unique to Africatown. It's a Mobile County phenomenon. It is a Black folk anywhere in this country phenomenon for a lot of the same complicated reasons. And that is the perspective, where you're coming from, the experiences that you're bringing to your particular situation. But I just expect the best for Africatown. And we got a lot of creatives, and there are younger people stepping into this space now with some really good ideas and a whole lot of energy. And I think that's really a plus. So when I start weighing the the positive versus negatives, the pluses are going to win all the time. And if we could ever figure out the how to deploy the resources, figuring out which resources go where, and then deploying them where they need to be, I think we really will really be able to take off then.
That is so,
Is that Don?
yes, that is so on the money. I'm sending you a hug through the airwaves, because in truth, I think, and I'm going to go to you, Anderson, because I've heard you talk about this. You like to use sports metaphors because well, you may consider yourself an athlete today, but I will say a former athlete. You like to use sports metaphors, and to me, some of the challenges on a team, every position is important, because that's what makes it a team. Every position is important. And sometimes, like in football, it's all about the quarterback. Well, anybody who actually plays football knows it's not all about the quarterback. You have to play your position. I think sometimes what gets lost, and Anderson, this is what I want you to talk about, is how do you help people to understand that a team can only really have one quarterback, but it can have 10 other players, all of whom have a role and an important contribution to make.
You know, Don, it's real interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking to my classmate, who's a descendant as well, Edward Allen, yesterday. Doris Lee Allen Lee brother, and we both were quarterbacks. We were both seniors in high school. There was another gentleman by the name of Fred Brown, who was also a junior when we won a state championship, and we called him Moon. Moon and I were seniors. The key to winning, I've learned, is a team approach, that you all stay focused on the team approach. The position is only as important and as valuable as its strength to the total team. The quarterback don't necessarily have to be the fastest person or the best arm, but they do have to call the plays that fits the mode of the team. If you know that you are stronger to the right or to the left, you favor those things. And so the quarterback is sort of the coach on the field who's giving directions. But the real strength of a team is that cohesiveness, those linemen, those backs, those receivers who are there to protect the quarterback at receiving the ball. And so I think that even Valina McCants, Ms. McCants, who's one of the oldest teachers in the community, often talks to me about being a team player. And the team player is not one individual, it's the team. And I think that's what keeps me going and keeps me driving, because I played with guys, and even though we played in the same positions, we were best friends, because our ultimate goal was for the team to win. It was not about the individual standing out and the individual whatever. It was about the team winning. And that's the way in which I've lived my life. And the people who are part of my life and who are part of those state championship baseball and football teams, we worked as a team, and we still work as a team, as individuals to this day. So I think that persons have to understand that the team concept is very, very important, that we're a team. It is not about one player, it's not about the quarterback, it's not about the fastest halfback, it's not about the end, it is about the team. Because unless all of those players are working in sync together, you're gonna lose. And I've been on both ends of that. I've been on the losing end and I've been on the winning end. And when teams do not function as one unit, no matter how much somebody's name gets in the paper, it was a team that won that game, not the individual. And so that's the way I look at life. And sports taught me a lot of that. And I had great coaches who were not only good teachers in academia, but good coaches and good role models.
Yeah, so I wanna go in a slightly different direction, but it's an opportunity. I hope that, there's so many people who do not really maybe know everything that is being done, not only by the foundation, but other organizations. You kind of spoke about the team. I'd like each of you, and Liz, you talked about the Blue Way. I mean, this should be an opportunity for folks to also get an accounting of what is being done, because it's easy for people to say, I don't see anything being done. Well, I know for a fact that that's not true. Yes, there's more that could be done. And yes, I hope that this will be one of those opportunities where someone somewhere will listen to this recording and become curious and want to know how they can contribute and help. But it would be very helpful, I think, for each of you to share. I mean, Jocelyn, you shared a couple of examples that you'd like to see, but what are some things that may not be as front of mind for people in this large audience about what is actually going on, what's being built, what's being invested in Africatown? This is an opportunity for you to dispel some of those notions of there's no progress. There is progress.
Well, I would like to talk about, because I am on my summer break, and I had the opportunity to volunteer with the ACDC with the food pantry, the food bank. They're able to give out boxes to people in the community, nice boxes of food, and that's every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And right now I'm working on a litter campaign with some of the business owners in Africatown. And that was one thing when they asked, what can they do? In which Africatown needs all of the above. Because when I'm asked that question, what does Africatown need? I say, well, they need all of the above. So right now I am in the process, and our first kickoff will be September the 8th or the 9th, is on a Saturday, where the business owners in Africatown are going to start a litter campaign. So they're going to put it on their calendar. So I gave them that charge. Okay, if you want to help, start with litter. And then after we get that together, then there are going to be some other steps that I'm going to ask them to help out with. But I know every second and fourth Tuesday, the ACDC pass out food, and I'm working on the litter campaign.
Great, thank you. Anderson, you're doing a million things. Just share a couple of them with us, okay?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that of course, I'm working on the cemetery. That's one of my pride and joys, is to get that cemetery to a place in which we can make sure we can identify where all the grave sites are and beginning to really put a structure to that. Of course, we're working with the Smithsonian and archaeologists in the National Trust that are also working from a national standpoint. We're working with colleges and universities in terms of Birmingham Southern, stemming the ties in terms of doing some fantastic work at the Heritage House with the Eco Garden and the swell, and all of that's taking place. We're also looking at the foundation, and I know Levy may mention this here, the foundation, with the support of SBP out of New Orleans and Commissioner Lovegood. We've done roofing and housing. And one of the things that we try to do is we try to be respectful of others who are doing things, and we let them know that we're doing things that may be in areas in which they're doing things. Because as Commissioner Lovegood said, and as Jocelyn said, we need everything, and we need as many hands on board as possible and stuff. Of course, this presentation here is very, very important in terms of people knowing and having an opportunity to see a different format of way in which things are being done as well. We're working with an organization called the Big We that Jocelyn spends more time with probably than I do. That's helping out of Memphis to do some things and come up with some various kinds of things. So there's a lot of partners and a lot of things that are happening with the school, with the community, with the churches, and I think that Yorktown is working with ACDC on that food pantry as well. And so I think one of the things that we have to do is that, and the foundation has talked about this here, we have to put together a collective calendar that really highlights all of the good things and all of the partners that are doing things, so that individuals see all of these inner workings that are going on and stuff. We recently had a meeting with a number of the nonprofits at the Community Foundation, because the other thing is that we have to expand into Mobile Total, to show Mobile Total that what you've been hearing is not true and stuff. And so we want to come and do some things. Of course, we had the Mobile Bar Association honored 10 of the organizations from Africatown at their luncheon this year on May 12th, which brought all of us together in this wonderful setting at the Bell House with all of these attorneys and other people. So I think that there are a number of things that are happening that people don't realize that are going on, where a number of the organizations are working together. We're expanding to share what we're doing to a broader sector of the community in different ways. So it's just so many things that are happening, but we do need to make sure that that is publicized in a way that individuals understand what's going on. In addition to that, we're working with and supporting the Redevelopment Corporation with Carlos Finley and housing, with SVP, and looking at ways to do some things. So it's just so many things that are going on that needs to be tied together. And I think as we tie those things together in a more visible way and show people that these things are all going in the same direction. You talk about the boat and the different boats, Don. We've got a lot of boats out there, but they really are going in the same direction. The problem is that we have not put them on the stage to show people how they're going. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do as organizations is to publicize and document and highlight all of these wonderful things that are happening.
Sounds like you need to organize a regatta.
So the only thing that I will add, absolutely, there's a lot going on in Africatown, and a lot happening in the lives of individuals that people don't know about. There are things happening for people in the community, and I think that's really important. There are so talking about the team, I guess my role on the team is at a level where anytime that there might be an opportunity to tap into something that can ultimately benefit Africatown, that's part of my role. And I'm hoping before this summer is over, I feel pretty sure we may have some big announcements to make that are things that have been on the hearts and minds for people that we may be much closer to realizing than we thought. So that's really all I can say right now. But I can just tell you that in those rooms, I try to stay in my lane and push where I need to push, and push based on what the community says to me its priorities are.
And we also have the landing celebration next week. Miss Siri Lovegood is, I'm sure she is anticipating that, but that's going to be a great celebration as well. And then just to go back about the boats, when you think and you talk about teams, and there's no I in team, and we have to make sure that these boats are going in the right direction, and the same in the right direction, and not bumping into each other. But you have to know, you have to trust your captain, right? You have to trust the captain that is on that boat. So that's the leadership part. And when you think about the leadership in Africatown, and, people, it's hearsay about people not getting along, but, find out from the beginning how all these individuals were together at one time. Let's go back to the happy place when they were together forming this neighborhood plan, right? Every tree has a root. So let's go to the root. Let's find out, from the beginning. You watch a movie and it starts at the end, but then sometimes you have a part two where it starts from the beginning. Everybody's looking at the part two to the story. Let's start at the beginning of this leadership and, where it is today.
Jocelyn, I'm going to let you have the last word. I've heard you have a mini passionate word, and that was a good one. We are almost out of time, and I want to give Levy an opportunity to close as we have after each workshop. Major Womack, I saw your question. We got it up there, and we're going to pass it on to Commissioner Ludgood, and it will be answered, and the question and answer which you've asked regarding grandfather clauses for Africatown residents so their taxes do not increase and they are able to stay in their homes. We're not ignoring you, but we'll see that we get an answer from her to you. Let me turn this back over to Levy, but before I do that, I just want to thank you all, and I want to thank the audience, all of you who have stayed through this, and all of you who are going to watch this in the future. there will be a day when you will look back on this day, June 29th, 2023, and you say, wow, look where we are now. And you'll look back and you'll think about this recording, what people said, and you'll know that don't let nobody tell you that things don't get better. It may take longer than you want, but they do get better. All right, good night to all of you, and over to you, Levy. Thank you, all panelists.
Don, thank you so much. Again, good evening, everyone. And before I go into my thank yous, I just want to share and extend an invitation for everyone who's participating with us on this evening to learn more about the Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation. We're going to provide a link to allow everyone the opportunity to contact the foundation to assist. We need everyone's contribution to help Africatown be the best Africatown it possibly can be. It's my pleasure to extend several important thank yous tonight to our panelists as we wrap up this phenomenal series that we have witnessed and observed over the last 8 weeks. I want to thank you all tonight for your openness, your transparency, and also your continued tenacity and efforts in contributing to the future and the growth and the expansion and the vision of Africatown itself. I would also like to show appreciation to the long list of partners that the foundation is blessed and fortunate enough to work alongside. We thank all of our partners such as JSA, building this wonderful program to allow the community to learn ways in expanding and building innovative ways in developing the capacity in the community of Africatown. Finally, we cannot end tonight without thanking each of you taking time out of your busy schedules, your busy days, and time away from your families to spend with us. The people who will be the drivers of this Africatown future are all those who are present tonight. Thank you for showing up each week, engaging, contributing, participating, and sharing your specific knowledge and questions during this wonderful series. We sincerely appreciate your ideas, your input over these last few weeks as well. I want to wrap up tonight with thanking everybody again, and we ask you for your continued support as we work towards a shared vision towards prosperity, growth, and happiness for the Africatown community. I want to close tonight with a few wonderful events that are currently going on in the community of Africatown. First and foremost, the foundation is proud to share the swim program, which you've heard several of our panelists tonight mention it. Ms. Joycelyn, she mentioned it tonight as well. It is a wonderful, wonderful program. We invite all of you, please come out, witness this wonderful initiative, teaching our young people to swim, connecting them to the water. We invite all of you to please come out as this program has kicked off and is constantly growing and expanding over these few weeks. And of course, also, which has been made mention as well, July the 8th. Anderson has nailed this home over the last 8 months to me. July the 8th is around the corner. And we want to make sure that everyone here not only knows about this wonderful weekend that is on the horizon, it's right around the corner, but we want you to tell other people about the good news coming out of Africatown as well. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not thank our commissioner for her hard work in leading this charge and everyone who's contributed to this day coming to fruition. Again, on behalf of the Africatown Heritage Preservation Foundation Board of Directors, my name is Levy King. I humbly serve as the chairman of the board. We thank you again for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for spending time with us as well. Everyone, have a great evening. Thank you.